Hello, everybody, and welcome to Public. I'm your host, Kinsey Grant. Yesterday, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit sided with investment firm Grayscale in a lawsuit against the Securities and Exchange Commission, which had denied Grayscale's application to convert its Grayscale Bitcoin Trust into an ETF. We're here today to discuss Grayscale Investments' court victory against the SEC and the impacts of this ruling on the broader crypto space. It certainly has been news much of the crypto world has been following and has been eager to understand in terms of impact. So we have the perfect guest here today to break down that impact itself and why this decision has been considered such a landmark win for crypto. I'm excited to welcome Craig Salm, the Chief Legal Officer at Grayscale Investments. Craig, welcome to Public. How are you today?
Hi, Kinsey. I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, I'm excited to chat today, and I imagine you are doing very well. It's certainly been a busy week for the team over there. So I would love if you could just start to kind of set the scene for us a little bit. Give me just a brief overview of what's been happening between the SEC and Grayscale, especially in terms of this recent ruling in your favor, and maybe where the SEC's argument fell short according to the court. Tell me a little bit about the update. What's been going on?
Yeah, a lot's been going on. A lot of positive things have been going on. So yesterday, a panel of 3 judges voted unanimously in favor of Grayscale in our lawsuit against the SEC to convert our flagship product, GBTC, into a spot Bitcoin ETF. That's a win for Grayscale. It's a win for GBTC shareholders, and really a win for the overall crypto community. But just taking a step back, yesterday's decision was the culmination of something that started all the way back in 2013 when we first launched GBTC, with the ultimate intentions to eventually convert it into an ETF when permitted by the regulatory environment. If you fast forward to October of 2021, that was the day we filed this application to convert GBTC into an ETF. The reason why we chose the specific date that we did was because that was the first day the first Bitcoin futures ETF started trading in the US. Following that, we saw a record-breaking 11.5 thousand comment letters into the SEC, all expressing favoritism towards this kind of product. Those are coming in from academics, from investors, from market participants, members of Congress sent in letters, all of them in favor of this application. Unfortunately, in June of the following year, we were denied. And so on that same day, we filed this lawsuit against the SEC challenging that denial. One of the bases of our argument is that the SEC has shown that they are okay with Bitcoin futures, which are a derivative of Bitcoin itself. So logically speaking, they should be okay with physical or spot Bitcoin, like what GBTC holds and what it would hold as an ETF. Following the filing of that lawsuit, there were briefs, amicus briefs, oral arguments, all leading up to yesterday's decision, which was a unanimous vote in Grayscale's favor. And so it's a big win for us. We're very excited, but there's still work to be done to get GBTC over that finish line to actually be an ETF.
Right. And let's talk for a second about that work that remains to be done before we hop into the reasoning that the SEC had in terms of its argument. Now, I would love to hear your perspective on how likely it is that you'll be able to actually do this conversion, to convert this into a spot ETF. Tell me a little bit about what the process looks like as you move forward, and maybe what the odds are that this happens.
Yeah, so we've always been saying that Bitcoin ETFs here in the US are a matter of when, not a matter of if. Yesterday's court victory is a major step forward in the right direction there. It's really paving the way for spot Bitcoin ETFs. But there is still technically a 45-day window under the federal rules of appellate procedure where the SEC has the opportunity to seek a rehearing of the decision. So we have to let that process play out, respect that process as it is. But it is certainly a big milestone. In terms of what's actually in the opinion, so the court really leaned into the argument that we had around this inextricable link between Bitcoin futures and spot Bitcoin. That's an argument that really you can make based on simple common sense. Bitcoin futures are derived from Bitcoin. Therefore, any of the risks, things like the fraud or manipulation that the SEC may have thought was existing in the market, that's going to affect futures the same way it affects spot Bitcoin. So it's really not a reason why the SEC can deny spot Bitcoin ETFs. That's exactly what the court said there. We also provided really good data to the court. We showed there's a 99.9% correlation between Bitcoin futures and spot Bitcoin. So all of our arguments we thought were very persuasive from the beginning. The fact that we had a 3-0 decision really just shows the compelling nature of that argument we had all along.
Could you explain a little bit, especially in terms of the idea of market manipulation? I'm curious to hear what you think about why regulators seem to be okay that there could be market manipulation, or the concern just seems to be less severe about market manipulation when it comes to futures products as opposed to something like this spot ETF. Why is that? Why is the concern of a differing degree between these two products that are, of course, related to the same asset? Why does it differ so much from regulators' perspectives?
Yeah, I mean, well, one thing I'll say is any regulator that is involved in this asset class definitely has a tough job. It was invented over, a little bit over 10 years ago. And so as a regulator, you want to be making sure that you're protecting those that you have jurisdiction over. And so I think it's natural to be sort of wary of those types of activities that can harm investors. But something like Bitcoin, it's been trading on US compliant exchanges for a long time now. It trades in volumes that are akin to other large tech stocks. On an AUM basis, GBTC specifically is akin to other global commodity-based ETFs. So the market structure really has become quite robust. So I think those concerns are a little bit unwarranted for Bitcoin right now. But then just going to the way futures compare to spot, we showed that the surveillance that exists in the futures market on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange is just as good as detecting things like fraud or manipulation for Bitcoin futures as they are for spot Bitcoin. And that really came out in yesterday's opinion as well. So to the extent the commission thought that there was a reason for treating futures differently from spot, we really showed that those are distinctions without a difference in the context of Bitcoin ETF approvals.
Yeah. And, you mentioned that this is a tough job to be a regulator of an asset class that is relatively new, comparatively speaking, right? What kinds of involvement do you expect to see, or do you want to see from the SEC, if anything, or from other regulators to keep investors protected? Because, the reason we ask about market manipulation in a conversation like this, or even that the SEC is concerned in the first place, is not without, reasoning. There have been plenty of stories that even non-crypto investors, I'm sure, have heard about over the last year or so regarding the significant fraud and market manipulation that takes place within the crypto arena. And I just would love to hear a little bit about what the right kind of role for regulators might be in this space with all of that in mind.
Yeah, so I mean, one really great way to protect investors looking to invest in Bitcoin is to bring it further into the regulatory perimeter through products like a spot Bitcoin ETF. I think it's a very straightforward investor protection argument that we have right there, something that we put in our court briefings as well. Grayscale is a regulated financial services firm. We go to the SEC seeking to make our products even more regulated for investors. We've talked about this ETF conversion, which would bring more regulation to Bitcoin. But another example is we are pioneers in bringing our products to become SEC reporting companies. What that means is that they file 10Ks, 10Qs, audited financial statements. We work with the SEC on making our disclosures really robust and fair. I think that's another really great way to protect investors, which is one of the key missions of the SEC. But another key mission is to promote capital formation. And a way that you can do that is by letting products like ETFs come to market that allow investors to gain exposure to crypto.
Yeah. And, I think in a lot of ways, having followed this space as obviously a sort of like third party entity covering it in the stuff that I write and the interviews that I do, it seems like there's been a shift over the last several years against what I'm sure a lot of people in the crypto space love to, fondly refer to as the wild, wild west of crypto. I've just seen like there are a lot more rumblings now of people who welcome regulation, of investors who want regulation, who want that impact from higher powers and from regulators. It's not so much something that we shy away from, and more so something that a lot of investors are welcoming. So with that in mind, I'm curious about the impact on the broader crypto space of something like this. Obviously this decision was a big win for Grayscale, but it's being celebrated as sort of a win.
It's a big win for Grayscale. It's a big win for our shareholders that really want this product to be an ETF. But it is also really a big win for the broader crypto community. And the reason for that is because the ETF wrapper has shown over 30 years that it enables more access to any asset class, whether it's stocks, bonds, commodities, or cryptocurrencies. And so once we do have Bitcoin ETFs here in the US, it really will open up the ability to invest in the asset class through a bigger universe of investors. There's investors that are more regulated or institutional who really need that kind of product structure that sits in their brokerage account along with their other investments to allocate to the asset class. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies have certainly become more accessible by holding it directly through self-custody or using other marketplaces. But the ETF wrapper is really an important one for further broadening access to the asset class.
Yeah, and obviously the kind of onboarding of other investors and other users into the crypto space has been a bit of a head scratcher at times. We've seen over the last several years a lot of big promises from crypto and from especially crypto startups. But I think the ultimate goal for many people in the crypto space is to onboard more users, to create more widespread adoption of crypto tech and crypto investment tech, especially. So it's certainly interesting to think about how that comes to fruition. I know that you said earlier it was a matter of when and not if in terms of actually pulling this off and converting this into a spot ETF. Can you share a rough timeline before I let you go? Do you have any anticipation of when this might be available for investors? Are we talking under a year, more than a year, months, many years? What's the general timeline that you're looking at right now?
Yeah, for GBTC, my hope is that its conversion to an ETF happens as soon as possible. The sooner that happens, the closure of this discount will occur, which will return real value back to investors to the tune of billions of dollars of value. So my hope is that it happens as soon as possible. In terms of the overall timeline, it's really hard to predict. I can say that we are doing everything possible to make this conversion happen as soon as possible. The one timeline that I can give you is that 45-day window that still remains with the court, where the commission has the chance to seek a rehearing. That gives them time to go through the opinion, digest it, make a decision, and we really do have to respect that process.
Right. All right. So 45 days from now, we'll check back in and see what we're working with. Craig, thank you so much for your time today. It has been so wonderful to hear a little bit more about all of the news this week and what it means for Grayscale and, of course, what it means for crypto broadly speaking. So thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Kinsey, and thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you once again to our guest, Craig Salm, Chief Legal Officer at Grayscale Investments. I'm Kinsey Grant. This is Public, and I will see you next time.